air fryer salmon and Brussels sprouts. So I have my salmon already thawing. We like to buy the kind that's in a package. I put it in some room temperature water just to do a quick thaw because it's too delicate to go into the microwave. You would cook the fish very quickly, and we still want to be food safe when we thaw quickly, when we do a quick defrost. So anyhow, that's what I've got started here, and we'll just jump in with the steps. First, we're going to start by making the sauce that's going to go on the salmon. So I went ahead and chopped up 2 cloves of garlic. The recipe calls for 4, split into 2 different batches, I guess you'd say. The first one, the first 2 teaspoons are going to, or excuse me, 2 cloves are going to go into the sauce or the marinade for the salmon, and that has also is going to include the juice of a lemon. So we'll go ahead and juice a lemon. Next, we'll add in our thyme. The recipe calls for a teaspoon of fresh thyme. I like to keep around dried herbs just for convenience, so I have a half a teaspoon of dried thyme. Because of them being dried, they're obviously more concentrated, so the flavor will be a little more intense. So you want to go ahead and do a smaller amount. I have some salt and pepper. I believe it's a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then a tablespoon of olive oil. And we'll whisk that together in our little bowl here. And this is now going to be the sauce that we'll put on our fish. So these have already been washed and are ready to be trimmed. Okay, to trim them, you can go ahead, if you want, you can pull the outer leaves off. We're going to cut off the bottoms of them. So we're going to trim the Brussels sprouts just like that. Probably in the trimming, the outer leaves are going to come off. That's okay. Just kind of put those over to the side. And next, we're going to take these and actually halve them. Okay, all of those are halved. So we'll move on to making the sauce or marinade that goes on these. The 2 remaining cloves of garlic that are right there. Next we have our salt and our pepper. And our olive oil. And then add in our Brussels sprouts and toss them in it. Okay. We'll get a spoon and stir our added Brussels sprouts to the sauce. Just to try and get them evenly coated. The recipe says to go ahead and start your salmon and your Brussels sprouts and then take your salmon out a little before you finish your Brussels sprouts cooking. I'm gonna do this a little bit different. I want it all to finish at the same time, so I'm gonna go ahead and start my Brussels sprouts first. So this is my air fryer. It's a little bit different than what some of you may have. It has the recipe, if you look at it, it talks about a stacked air fryer. Mine just has a single shelf, but it is a pretty good sized shelf. So I'm going to position it where all the Brussels sprouts are spread out, and then I can just add the salmon in probably about 3 or 4 minutes. I like my Brussels sprouts a little more charred, so I may let it go a little bit longer. I'm gonna say it's a little bit of personal preference. As long as your salmon doesn't end up overcooked and your Brussels sprouts don't end up burnt, then you can play around with the times. Basket is already sprayed with some nonstick spray. You do want to make sure you do that just so it's easier to get your food out of the basket, of course. I'll push this in, close the door, and hit start. And it's going to get really noisy as it kicks on the fan. That's actually what an air fryer is a high-speed convection oven. So mine has it marked as a super convection. So anyway, we'll just kind of keep an eye on it, and then add the salmon. While we're waiting for the Brussels sprouts to get finished, we're going to start putting the marinade or sauce on our fish. So just get your brush with the mixture and start brushing it on the fish. My salmon fillets are pretty small. These are just some frozen salmon that we get at the local grocery store in packages. So they may cook really quickly. They usually, what I normally do is I steam them in the Instant Pot. Actually, if you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of the pressure cooker. Anyway, it will finish cooking them in about 3 minutes in the pressure cooker. So I'm going to be watching these pretty closely to make sure that they don't get overcooked, because overcooked fish is usually really disappointing. So the timer went off on the Brussels sprouts, so they're already crisping up, a little charred. I put the sauce marinade on the fish, and I'm going to transfer the fish from the plate onto the basket. Now we adjust our timer for 6 minutes. The Brussels sprouts are getting a pretty good char on them, I guess you'd say. So while I was waiting for that, I went ahead and whipped up the little glaze that's supposed to go over the Brussels sprouts, which is 1 tablespoon of honey with 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. Here is what the final product looks like up close. So I think it looks pretty good. I like a good char on my Brussels sprouts, so I'm still pleased with the decision I made. And the salmon looks nice and cooked. Hopefully, again, not overcooked. I don't believe it should be. It only went in for about 3 to 4 minutes. So should be perfectly good to add our glaze to the Brussels sprouts and then pair with a starch of some sort, like the sweet potatoes in the Instant Pot. And it's a nice, well-rounded meal. Enjoy! I feel like this meal comes with some confessions. It was not an easy meal in that there were multiple dishes involved in preparation. Really, the cooking to me wasn't hard, but cleanup is going to take a little bit of work. I would recommend, if you're going to use the air fryer, if you have an option for a pan to be in there rather than the basket, you might try that with the salmon, because I found it to be really juicy and it made quite a bit of a mess. But overall, the Brussels sprouts look great. The salmon looks great to me. And then I paired it with the Instant Pot sweet potatoes. I just wanted to make that confession because there are going to be quite a few dishes tonight from that meal, which I'd hoped was something we'd eliminate. This was my fault because I didn't read the recipe as thoroughly as I should have. The ingredients sounded really yummy to me, so I went for it. It happens. Would I do this on a weeknight? Probably not. Maybe you're a faster cook than I am, so maybe you could do it on a weeknight. You let me know what you think. Anyway, it looks tasty, so I'm excited. I hope you enjoy it too.